From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts. Welcome to Community Catalysts, the podcast that examines the qualities of community leadership and the many paths and forms it can take. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman. Have you ever instantly connected with someone you just met? I'm not talking about romance. I'm talking about intellect and energy and humor and style. That's exactly how I felt upon meeting my guest today, Victoria Woodards, the mayor of Tacoma, Washington. In addition to her duties as mayor, she recently concluded her term as board president of the National League of Cities, and it was in that capacity last fall that our paths crossed backstage at the annual conference of the League of California Cities. I took the stage to deliver the conference's opening keynote, but only after her genuinely meaningful and absolutely dazzling opening remarks. Let me just say this. She is a natural energizer and one tough act to follow. I am just excited and honored that she's accepted our invitation to talk about the style and the substance of her own journey to leadership. Mayor Victoria Woodards, welcome to you.
Matt, thank you so much for having me.
So, Mayor, let's begin with a difficult situation. Leaders are sometimes forced to take on challenges they never could have imagined. And tragically, the nation recently saw that just once again. We're recording this interview nearly 2 weeks since the Francis Scott Key Bridge was struck by a container ship and collapsed, shutting down the busy port of Baltimore. The repercussions are going to be immense for the local economy and for supply chains nationally. Mayor, your city, Tacoma, Washington, is home to one of the largest container ports in the country, so I imagine the tragedy hits close to home. I'm wondering what training or contingency planning prepares a mayor for the 1:30 a.m. phone call of such an unthinkable disaster. I mean, if God forbid, if that happened in your city, how would you even know what to do?
You know, that I appreciate that question. And those kinds of tragedies or incidents happen often in cities, not necessarily everybody's city, but often. I don't know that there's anything that actually prepares us for any real emergency. Just like, I happen to be the mayor and the incident happens in a city, but people every day have emergencies they would have never thought would happen. And so let me be honest and say, of course, we have a list of procedures. We quickly know, we have protocols in place. We quickly know who we're going to call first. We can stand up our emergency operations center. We know that our police chief and our fire chief is going to be there, and the city manager and the mayor, right? We do all of that stuff for any incident. But every incident is different.
Do you happen to recall the first time once you became mayor that you actually got that kind of an emergency phone call and it surprised you, and how you responded to it or what you learned from the first time you had that experience?
I don't know if I can think of the first time. I'll give you a good example of what got me out of bed at 2:00 in the morning one day, or 1:30 in the morning one day. It was shortly after George Floyd and the civil unrest that was happening across the country. And I got a call that said some young people in our community had made their way onto the freeway and were marching from one part of our city to the other part of our city in cars. Not marching, but they were in cars and they were blocking the freeway. And I jumped out of bed and came downtown to where they were coming off the freeway. And because Tacoma is my home, and I guess in some ways I feel like the mother of the city to a lot of young people here, I walked onto the freeway and started telling young people, it's 1:30 in the morning. Go home. This is not respectful of anybody that you're trying to represent. And so I was probably out till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, making sure kids got home, and kids that I knew, giving them rides to their cars. Because I think that as a mayor, you feel a sense of responsibility when something like this happens. And it's huge because I can imagine Mayor Scott's thinking about those that were on the bridge, those whose lives were lost, those who have to feed their families every day, those who need to get to work or get where they're going over the bridge. And I can imagine that his thoughts just swirled around the people that the tragedy affected or that the incident affected. And that night for me, that's not a bridge collapsing, but that's my young people out on the streets who could be hurt in some way. Or who with bad judgment could make bad decisions and hurt someone else. And so I think in those moments, you take on this form, and not a superhero by any means, but this care and concerned person for your city and those affected, and you do what's necessary in the moment to protect that.
I want you to talk more about that sense of responsibility, because it's a very interesting point. I was imagining that the first responders, the police, the fire, the other emergency folks who were involved with this, that there are binders of contingency plans that when things happen, people who have spent a lot of time imagining worst case scenarios have already thought through the order of things. But what you're talking about, the sense of responsibility, is a different quality altogether. It's not task oriented. It sounds like it's something about being present in the moment and trying to understand the totality of what's going on. Am I hearing that right from you?
You are absolutely correct. And I think as I answered your question, let's be clear. Our fire department, our police department, our emergency management team, they all have those binders and books that tell, if this, do this, if this, they've played the drills and, they've done all of that. And when it happens, they'll tell me where to go and what to do according to their binder. But for me, it is bigger than those steps. And not to diminish their job, because their job is even bigger than mine in the moment, right? I'm not the one going directly out. In this case, I was for this thing that happened in Tacoma, but in most cases, I'm not on the fire truck. I'm not in the police car. I'm not an emergency response person. So not to diminish what the job that they do, but we all have a role to play. And for me, I think not only about them, because I'm also worried about our first responders, but I'm thinking about those who are affected as well. And for me, when you are given the awesome responsibility or opportunity to serve your community as its mayor, no matter what the form of government, you have a responsibility to the whole city, even those who didn't elect you. Because when you become mayor, you're not mayor just over the people who voted for you. You're mayor over the entire city. And so for me, my first concern and thought always is who's affected and what are we doing to take care of them?
So let's talk about your path to leadership. You've been mayor since 2018. You served 7 years as an at-large member of the council before that. So take us back even further. What got you on the path to public service in the first place?
I've been in Tacoma since I was 3. In my early teens, I joined a church. And I think that's how kind of my formal path to service began to line up and how I got to do more. I've always been a helpful person. I've always wanted to be the problem solver or the fixer of anything, whether it was playing on the playground with my friends when I was a kid, or now being mayor of the city. But I always had a heart for service. I felt better when people felt better. But I graduated from high school, joined the military, which was another opportunity for me to serve. And I joined the military selfishly for 2 reasons: one, to serve, but also to see the world. And I got stationed, what I tell people, right here in Tacoma at Fort Lewis, Washington. So my opportunity to see the world didn't exist then. But so I ended up here at home and worked in the private sector, worked in the public sector. And then I was going to school and I got a call one day to go work for the Tacoma Urban League, to go interview for a job at the Tacoma Urban League, which is one of our local nonprofits as a national organization. They interviewed me, I interviewed them. I ended up taking the job. And I would say that's when the world kind of opened up to me. And I really began to understand my calling. I still didn't have any idea it would be in politics, but I knew that I was working in the right field because it never felt like work. I never dreaded getting up and going to work.
So are you saying that community service was baked into your DNA?
I would absolutely own that and say that is true. And I would add community service in Tacoma is baked in my DNA. Not that I won't do it somewhere else, but I love my city. And I think every mayor every elected official who gets into this work, I believe 99.9% of them get into it because they love their community and they want to see good things happen.
What is it about the Tacoma community that you love?
I am about to be 59 years old. I'm an African American woman in a city of 220,000 people, where 10% of this community is made up by people who look like me. I graduated from high school here. I went into the military. I don't have a college degree, but I've never been homeless. I've always been able to give back to community, and here I sit today as mayor of my city. It resonates for me because I want every child, every person in this community to be able to be their best selves. Tacoma has given so much to me, and I feel this great sense of obligation to give it back. And so that's how I can best articulate why this love is so deep for me, because I've seen what this city can do in its best times, and I've seen what the city can do in our most challenging times. And as you know, much like in the world, sometimes the ups and the downs can all happen in one day. But we're resilient, and I love this place.
You're saying that the city of Tacoma has made you who you are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I understand that one of your mentors was the late Harold Moss, who was Tacoma's first African-American mayor, and before that, its first Black city council member. Can I ask you just to tell me who he is and what he means to Tacoma?
Harold is the most real and authentic person I've ever met in my life. Now he's no longer with us. He was the first real African American politician that I met. And we had a few others, but what you saw with Harold was what you got. For me, much like a lot of people, even when they meet me, or when anybody meets a politician, I think in our mind sometimes we have a certain idea of what a politician looks like, how they walk, how they talk, just how they interact with folks. And everything I thought about a politician was blown out of the water when I met Harold Moss. Every box that in my mind at some point in my life that I tried to put a politician in, Harold blew that out of the water. And he was just the most kind and loving person. And I learned so much from being with him. He taught me so many lessons. I would not be sitting in this chair that I'm sitting in today if it had not been for the Harold Moss.
It sounds also like this is how we overcome kind of innate bias that we grew up with, right? We imagine that a mayor looks a certain way, sounds a certain way. And so you're saying is when Mayor Moss was in office, he did things his way and proved that you didn't have to be the mayor at a central casting to do it, that everyone has the ability to bring their authentic selves to the position and be successful at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm going to switch gears on you here. Last month, instead of delivering your annual State of the City address, you invited Tacoma residents to come down and tell you and tell the city what was on their minds instead. Why did you decide to depart from tradition in such a dramatic way?
So I had just been at the National League of Cities. I came home, and on my flight home, I'd already been thinking about my State of the City. I had just spent time going through my full 30-page draft with my speechwriter, and I just got it in my spirit that this wasn't a time for me to go stand on a stage and give a 60-minute speech. And so I decided, a lot of people have been coming to our city council meetings. I'm hearing a lot just in the community. And I thought, you know what? It's time to prioritize the voice of my community over my own. And so I said, what if, and we did this within a 2-week turnaround time, what if I didn't give a speech? We went to the same school and we had an opportunity to hear from residents. And I have to say this, I am fortunate to work in a city where we have some of the most talented people, because the ability to pivot in 2 weeks to turn it into what it turned out to be was amazing. And so I have to thank the staff here at the city of Tacoma for doing that, especially my direct staff and the staff in our media and communications office. But we ended up with 6 different rooms and that were on the 6 topics that we hear the most about: affordable housing, budget and spending, community safety, homelessness, environmental and behavioral health, and then other concerns and feedback. And we had these different rooms. We did it at the same high school where there was a hallway in between, but they opened up the doors of the classroom so people could easily flow in and out. And we had over 200, 250 people show up that night. We even had some people who showed up who thought they were coming to the speech and were initially disappointed that there wasn't a speech, but they went upstairs and participated. And an hour and a half later, when they came down, they were ranting and raving about how great it was and how happy they were that they got an opportunity to talk. We then also opened it up online. And so it was about prioritizing others' voices.
Mayor, who were the people in the room doing the listening? You obviously couldn't be in all 6 rooms at the same time.
The other great thing about this, which I think is important, while all of our directors, most of our directors were there, our city manager was there, the people in the rooms were the people who touched the topics every single day. So it wasn't the director of planning, it was the planning staff. Because they're the ones who can interact, I think, more readily and easily, and they're the ones who do the jobs every day. So I spent a lot of time, because it's a huge issue in my city as it is in others, in the room where the conversation was around affordable housing and homelessness. It was so heartwarming to see the person who's in charge of our homeless programs having this one-on-one dialogue with about 30 people in that room with differences of opinion about how we should handle the issue. And then to watch them self-police even each other.
I want to hear more about this because I was trying to imagine what the dynamic was in the room. So if someone made a comment, then did the staff person react to that or respond to it immediately? It sounds like you're describing something that looked more like a group discussion with people who cared about this.
And it was a facilitated group discussion, right? So whenever there was a question, staff was able to answer it. And let me just say, every room looked different. Like this was probably the room that stayed the most crowded the longest, because this was a huge issue for people. But there were probably 30 people in that room over the entire night, where other rooms, people were just having individual or small group discussions. This was sit down. Everybody was looking to the front of the classroom and talking with each other. And so our staff person was there to answer questions about our code and about our tiny home sites and about sheltering in Tacoma. But then where there were kind of philosophical conversations, then people respectfully had them with one another. And so staff doesn't need to be in the philosophical conversation. And I'll tell you, so much so, I got so worried, I started inching up to the front of the room. There were some pretty heated conversations, but not disrespectful. So that was another thing I was really proud of. But I started inching myself up to the front of the room because I didn't want I didn't want any city staff to have to enter into the middle of this conversation. But I inched myself up to the front of the room. But I'll tell you what, I inched myself right back as the community itself had their own dialogue. And I left the room going, I didn't know what I wanted to happen, but this is really good.
You might remember when I gave my keynote talk from Conflict to Conversation, one of the themes that I touch on is that when you bring people together, the goal is that not that everyone's going to agree, but that everyone should emerge feeling connected, respected, and heard. And I'm wondering if you've learned any lessons from the experience that you've just been through that other community leaders might want to take from your experience. What are the things that really worked so that the people who were there felt connected, respected, and heard?
One, I know that as government employees and as elected leaders, we are taught to plan to the nth degree. This is the plan. And we have flexibility, but we certainly have a plan. And so one thing I'll say is, sometimes you have to sit in stuff and be uncomfortable, right? I mean, like I was really uncomfortable where the conversation was going because some of the things that were being said were things that I don't necessarily agree with. So I was uncomfortable in wanting to dive in. But as I moved, you have to stop and just let it play out for a moment and give it an opportunity to resolve itself.
That also strikes me as approaching a conversation with some degree of humility, which is to allow the other person to get what they have off of their chest and be heard about it, even if you disagree, so that they at least feel that they've been respected.
Absolutely. And everybody has to feel respected. I know, and I'm switching gears very quickly, but we do public comment, in our community. And I say thank you to everybody. As a matter of fact, when someone comes up and criticizes me, I say thank you probably even with more enthusiasm. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you for being here. Because I don't have to agree with you. I just have to hear you and respect you.
So let's talk about public comments. One of the initiatives that you had was reforming the public comment process in Tacoma. And I understand it got so bad that the city actually suspended the public comment period for 6 months. So help us understand what made that become such a difficult issue for the city.
So it happened while I was not on the council. So I stepped off the council to run for mayor. And in the year that I was gone, public comment just continued to get out of hand. And so much so that the council at that time suspended public comment for 6 months. 2 or 3 of those months were months I inherited. So, when I got here, that's how it was. I think it is our job as elected leaders to hear from our community.
Let me just make sure I understand. Did they also cancel public comment on agendized items too?
No, not agenda items, but on like what we call
non-agenda
community forum. Because we have public comment every week, and then we have community forum 2 times. Now it's 2 times a month. It was once a month then.
The problem of the unagendized public comments was what? That they were becoming too numerous, too nasty, what?
Too nasty, too disrespectful. I've had a couple of times when I've even had to shut down a meeting so people will come and march down front because they're trying to get seen on TV or get more attention or disrupt the meeting. So all of those things. So the idea that people could not show up under community forum and share their thoughts about anything over which the city had jurisdiction.
So is the situation fixed today? And what does the public comment period look like now?
Public comment period is so much better now. Now, we still have times when people come in and they march up front and we shut down the meeting for a few minutes. Just several weeks ago, I gavelled our meeting out because it got out of hand. So it still happens, but it doesn't happen hardly as much. It is so funny. I have had lots of things happen. Lots of people come up and say, thank you for the opportunity to speak now. They feel grateful that they can speak. We also have gone from doing public comment once a month or doing community forum once a month to doing community forum twice a month. The amount of time has changed, but we have added an opportunity. And I think, like I said, I call on everyone by their name. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. And I thank everyone for coming. And I've even had someone, we had a situation, I don't know, probably 6 months to a year ago, probably maybe closer to 8 months. We were having a conversation around tenants' rights. And we had quite a few people who showed up to speak that night. And unfortunately, we did not, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we, sometimes the dais is not in the council chambers. That's not the only place you hear from people, right? So most of the people in the council chambers thought one way, but we'd gotten lots of letters and heard other things from other people. So when we made the decision, it wasn't one that they were happy with. So much so that when we made it, we had to take a recess so people could calm down because, there was a little bit of an outburst. But I had a young woman walk up to me and she said, you know what? I am so proud to live in this city because while I didn't agree with the decision you made tonight, I felt so heard and so respected by the process that I'm just really proud to live here. And to me, that's the goal. That's the goal. That's the way you want someone to feel, that you can agree. You can disagree without being disagreeable. And no matter what you think, you still felt like you were heard.
So go back to the state of the city listening exercise here. That's kind of your community forum, but at a wholesale level. As you think about next year,
Yeah.
will you do that again, or will you make this more of a system of government in Tacoma?
I had lots of people who said, this was so good. Will you do this every year? And it might look like doing something in the fall. I mean, I only have one more year left, so I don't know. But if I were going to be here another 4 years, I probably would incorporate, and I'd call it your state of the city in January, maybe. And then I deliver the state of city in March or April that responds to what I heard in January, what people want to hear about. We understand the importance, Matt. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to share with you something that we've done. And there's numbers in here that make me really excited.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
We, like a lot of cities, have started to do participatory budgeting, which allows people to really have say-so in where money goes. And what we've done is we've set aside $1 million for each community, for each district within the city, to decide what they want to spend it on in their district. The first district that we did is District 4, which is what we call East Side and some of the south end of Tacoma. And this is a very diverse area in our city. They have a really high concentration of BIPOC community members, from our Asian Pacific Islander community to our Latino community, African American community. It's a very diverse place. They are a district population, I said we're a city of 220,000, of about 45,000 or almost 46,000 people. We did this outreach through participatory budgeting. And when we got ready for everybody to vote on what they wanted to do, we received back 12,389 votes on a participatory budgeting process. In 2017, in that same district, only 4,849 people voted. And in 2021, only 5,852 people voted. So we doubled the number of people who even vote and got them engaged in deciding what they want in their community. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think the way that our team went about it, getting ambassadors for the district that represented every community in the district, making sure that everything was in multiple language, the most languages spoken, Cambodian. I feel like what they kind of went about, but let me just say, making sure that we spoke the languages in the community, engaging students so that students engage their schools. But that's something I'm super proud of in Tacoma. Because of the number of people. Heck, citywide in 2021, only 42,000 people voted. And that's 25% of all the people who voted in Tacoma that actually turned out for one district. So it's something I'm super proud of.
Mayor, I have to move our conversation forward. You served your year as president of the National League of Cities. And I imagine that not just in California where we met, but I imagine you got a chance to interact with a whole lot of leagues all over the country and a whole lot of mayors in different communities. I'm wondering if there's anything that you took from that experience, having the ability to connect with so many of your fellow community leaders. Is there some insight, either good, bad, or ugly, that we should take about the state of being a mayor or the state of community leadership that's going on nationally right now?
Absolutely. The first is people who run for office get a really bad rap. The word politician is, like, oh my God, you say you're a politician. And automatically, as we talked earlier, that just conjures up this whole idea that we're making a lot of money, we're on the take from somebody else, just all of these things that you think about when you say a politician. And one thing that I always knew in my heart, but was confirmed for me, is that most people in this country who run for office want to do two things. They either want to fix something that they saw that was broke, or they want to continue something that they saw that was good. Although we may think differently about how we get to that, and I would say not even just across the United States, but across the world. I've met mayors and elected officials in other countries, and there is really a desire to do good. The second thing I'll tell you is that while there may be a few things, for the most part, there is nothing new under the sun. What's happening in Tacoma is happening in Topeka, is happening in Sacramento, is happening in Miramar, Florida, is happening in New York. I mean, all of the issues that we're facing, it's just on a different scale. I'm the mayor of Tacoma, Washington. So my focus and energy to fix the issue is here in Tacoma. But the acknowledgement that we're all in the same big old boat together is another thing that I've learned. And that some people have solved some issues that we can learn from one another. And for some of our issues, nobody has found the magic key, right? Nobody's found all of the solutions to every problem. And we're all just doing the best we can every day to make our communities the best communities for our residents to live in.
Mayor, before I let you go, I want to ask if I could do a few lightning round questions with you. So this is top of your head answers. You ready? What's the most impactful leadership advice you've ever received?
I'll give you two. There are things that people have said to me that I found in some other form in a way. So one is right here on my desk that I keep here, and it says strive for progress, not perfection. And I think that's been said to me in many different ways. And so that's something I hold dear to me. And the other one is, again, I think, oh my God, I'm trying to think of who coined this phrase. Who coined the phrase, be the change? Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. And that stands in the face of being authentic. So if I could sum up all the advice that I've been given in life that speak to me, it's strive for progress, not perfection, and then be the change that you want to see so that people can see that change in you.
If you were going to send a message back in time to yourself 10 years ago, what would it say?
Self-care is not selfish. Remember, no, to put it more plainly, remember to take care of yourself while you're taking care of everybody else.
What's your response to a resident in your community who would say that government is not the solution to our problem, government is the problem?
I would say we're all part of the problem and we're all part of the solution.
What does that mean?
It means that it's that collaborative thing in me. Government itself can't solve all of the problems of the world, all of the problems of a city. It takes all of us. And so I think when I say all of us, I mean business, residents, nonprofits. It takes all of us who care about a community to make a community everything that it needs to be. But if we say it takes all of us to make it better, it means that we all have some responsibility in the condition that it is now.
This goes back to your point from earlier of you got to give people an opportunity to have meaningful contribution to the way their city is managed and the way it's run.
Absolutely. And if you get back to my theme this year for my State of the City my themes for my State of the City have always been collaborative in some point, but this year it was weaving our collective tapestry, meaning that one strand alone is beautiful and strong. But when you weave something together and it gets stronger and more beautiful by all the colors that come together. So
excellent. Mayor, how do you recharge yourself, especially during challenging times?
I like puzzles and I like water. And I don't get enough of either.
You're missing one that I'm aware of.
What's that?
I know that you are an adherent to retail therapy.
Oh, Matt, how could I forget retail therapy? That's the thing I get to do the most of. Matt, let me reframe that. I believe in contributing to the economics of every city in the world.
Do you want to share how I know that insight about you?
Did I say it on the stage or did you catch me shopping? Which one?
Neither. After my speech in California, I was waiting for my cab to pick me up, take me to the airport, and you emerged from the hotel having changed into casual clothes, and you shared with me that you were going shopping. Sorry, I didn't want to blow your secret, but there you are.
Okay. No, I always everybody knows, I find a place to shop wherever I go.
Mayor Victoria Woodards, what gives you hope for the future?
the people that I get to meet and see every single day. As difficult as the world is now, and as challenging as this job is now, and as hard as it can be, given affordability crisis and homelessness and crime and infrastructure, just all the things that face the city. As I said earlier, I know that the answer lies not just in me as mayor, not just in the 8 other people I get to serve with, but in the people who live in this community, both those just born and our seniors. And so people are the things that give me hope.
Mayor Victoria Woodards, it has been absolutely wonderful to get to know you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so open to this conversation. I really hope our paths get to cross again sometime soon.
Matt, I can't wait. Thank you.
Again, my sincere thanks and appreciation to Mayor Victoria Woodards of Tacoma, Washington. This episode was produced by Kerry Lengel and edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo. Jenna Maisel is our production assistant. Our executive producer is John Little. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. If you have a question, comment, or a story to share, reach me at 602-688-2724 or podcast at socialprosperity.us. I'd love to hear from you. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst.